Here's an old truck. This used to be a logging road right here. This is an old truck that used to haul logs out of here, and I guess it broke down, and here it is. I would say about 99% of people stay on the trail their entire lives. And that's both literal and metaphorical. So I think people lack the courage, lack the knowledge, lack the skills a lot of times to venture off the trail. And the amazing thing about doing that, if you do have the courage and the skills to do it, is that 99% of the world is off of the trail. You can only see so much from the well-beaten path, and every now and then to me, staying on the trail is just like this confined zone that just doesn't allow me to exercise my adventurous side. Learning a little bit about navigation, I think, is key. Learning a little bit about your natural environment, the water that you can drink, the water that you can't drink, those types of things, and a little bit of survival skills, perhaps bringing along the gear that you might need with you to shelter yourself from the elements, that type of stuff, because you're going to be your own first responder. One of the tactics that I use quite regular when I'm off the trail, which is almost all the time, I hate hiking on trails for the most part, unless, you know, I do it with the family and the kids and stuff, but for the most part, if it's just me and the pooch, I'll be off the trail. And one of the easiest tactics that I use is just keeping a track of where the sun is, just basic awareness of where you are. You can use land features, ridges and things like that in the distance, and in the wintertime it's pretty easy. Like, you can see a long ways. I could see that ridge right there, and I can keep that ridge on my left shoulder and just keep that as a reference point, so I know where I came from and how I need to get back. The sun's a good one. So I've been hiking for, say, an hour or so, give or take, and I've had the sun basically on my left side for the most part. Basically on the left side. I've taken a couple turns here and there, but for the most part it's been over there. So now if I want to go home, if I want to head back in the direction that I came, all I do is put the sun on my right shoulder, on the right side, and for the most part keep it there, and I'll head back the way that I came. Well, I live on the East Coast, right? I live in the Appalachian Mountains of North Georgia, and it's, unless you're injured, there's absolutely no reason to be lost and never found again. If you're injured, that's a little bit different, but if you're capable of moving, man, I tell you what, you can go in any direction really in a straight line, which we'll talk about here in just a second. You can go in a straight line in any direction and come across something. You're gonna hit a river, you're gonna hit a road, you're gonna hit a house, you're gonna hit something if you just go in a straight line. And really, from here, I'm up on top of a ridge right now. I could head downhill in any direction and run into water. And if I follow that water downstream, it's going to run into more water, a bigger stream, and then a bigger stream, and a bigger stream. And people live near water. They live in the bottoms. They live closer to the water sources. And there's some places where that's not always the case, but where I live, literally just head downhill in any direction if you're lost, and you could find your way to some sort of civilization and find some help. Let's say I did go off trail because I wanted to see something, check out something a little bit closer that I saw in the distance, or I heard something. I wanted to go investigate what it was, or whatever, you know, your curiosity got the best of you perhaps. And then suddenly you're starting to realize, like, wait a minute, I'm not really sure how to get back to that trail or wherever I came from to start with. Crap, what do I do? And I've been in that situation. I definitely have been there. I have, like Daniel Boone, I've never been lost, but I have definitely been turned around a bit from time to time. So the best thing to do in that situation is just stop sit down, sit against a big tree, kind of like this one right here, and just collect your thoughts. Don't freak out. You're not going to die. You're gonna be okay. You just gotta relax just a little bit, because that moment of fear, and in my situation where that's happened to me before, it's not, if I'm being really honest with you, it's not fear that I'm going to die. It's fear of, embarrassment perhaps, or it's fear that, people are going to be worried about you. If you don't return home when you say you're going to return home, they might perhaps send the search parties out after you. So hopefully you've told people where you are, you told people where you're going, and you've told people what time you're supposed to get back. But with that said, even if you've done that, people are going to worry about you, and it's natural to not want that. It's natural to try to save yourself. You want to save yourself so you don't have the embarrassment, you don't have the freaking out of your family members. So, but the best thing to do is just to sit down. If you do realize there's a point where you realize, oh crap, I'm not quite sure where I am, sit down, collect your thoughts, relax a little bit, have a snack, drink some water, and then just try to use your instincts to navigate yourself back to where you started from. A good way to do that is just pick yourself a big tree, kind of like, like this giant big white pine right here. Let's say this is my point of where I was, the point where I realized I was lost. I could use this tree as kind of my base camp area, and I could venture out short distances where I could still see this tree, venture out short distances in all directions. I can make a big circle around this tree and see if I could find my trail, my tracks, whatever it is. That's a really, really good tactic. But as long as you can see this is the least lost that you have been right here. If you just start running through the jungle like a madman, like crazy, you're gonna get more and more lost and possibly in more and more trouble. Come on, girl. Come on, girl. Good girl. That's a good girl. Yeah. Good girl. Where'd you go? What'd you sniff? What'd you find? Blessed with water everywhere. So if you die of dehydration here, you're either injured really badly or you're afraid to drink the water for various reasons. Sometimes could be understandable, but downhill this direction is going to lead to water. 100% guaranteed. I'd bet my life on it. Downhill in this direction, 100% will lead to water. No questions asked. I guarantee it. You will hit some sort of water if you just head downhill in any direction. If you keep following that water down and down and down and down, you're going to run into some sort of civilization eventually. And probably the main thing to keep yourself from getting lost in the first place, if you're off trail, is just basic awareness. Just always being aware of where you are and where you came from. Taking notes, mental notes of specific landmarks or features. Keeping an eye on the big ridge to your left. There's a big, crooked, nasty, tree that's been split off on one side. Remembering those big features like that can help you stay on your path and just avoid getting lost in the first place, because that's the goal. Traveling in a straight line in our area is really tough, just because of the steepness of the terrain and all the barriers that you're going to come across. You're going to come across a lot of water obstacles, and just the steepness, ruggedness of the terrain makes it pretty challenging. So, but if you wanted to try to walk in a straight line, which is another really good tactic that could work in a lot of places, just to get yourself unlost. Picking a direction and traveling in a straight line as best you can, because if you just start walking, you're going to end up walking in this giant big circle, and probably you're going to stay lost if the area is big enough. So walking in a straight line is a little bit tricky in this area, but in some places it's not so bad. You can pick a tree, like let's say this is my tree right here, this big monster, this big hemlock. I'm going to pick another tree in the direction of travel that I want to go. And I can see that one right there, that tree right there. I'm going to walk to it, and I'm going to keep this one in sight. And this is going to be my starting reference point. And then I know there's another tree in that same direction, right just beyond it. And then another tree in that same direction just beyond it. And I'll just keep leapfrogging my way, making sure I'm always looking back so I can see the tree that I just came from. And if I keep leapfrogging to that next tree, the next tree, and the next tree, and I keep them in a straight line, I know that I'm going to be walking in a straight line, and I'm not going to be walking in circles like a crazy person. I, generally speaking, if I'm out hunting or whatever it is, I'll keep a small pack with some supplies and stuff like that, a water bottle and a poncho and basic shelter, something real minimal. And I'll also keep a compass in there. And before I go into an area, especially if it's a new area, I'll look at a map of the area. It's always a good idea to bring a map as well, but let's assume you don't have one. It's always a good idea to at least look at like your GPS when you're going into an area. When you park your truck where the area you're going to hunt, just make a mental note. You know, let's say the road runs east and west predominantly, and I'm going to be hunting on the north side of that road. I know for a fact if I stay on that side of the road the whole day, all I got to do is go south and I'll run into that road. This basic simple stuff like that just keep you from getting lost in the first place. Now it's a little bit more challenging to come out exactly where you started, to come out right where your vehicle is parked. That takes a little bit more skill, but for the most part, you're not going to be lost. I always keep a small button compass in my belt, so regardless if I have a pack with a real compass and map in it, I've always got a small button compass in my cash belt from Wazoo, and it's very reliable from what I have found as far as button compasses go. The button compasses that they sell are really good, and I've relied on them multiple times actually. If I've thought I've been one place, then it turns out like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not quite sure where I am. I can use that small little button compass to get me basic general direction back to where I need to go. And it's come in pretty dang handy. And it just gives you that next level of confidence that oftentimes we will lack otherwise. There's lots of different tricks and stuff that you can do to, the sun rises in the east, sets in the west. Everybody knows that, but it's more like southeast and southwest. And depending on the time of the year, you could be off. General direction, yeah, it does work, but for the most part, what if it's really, really cloudy and you can't tell where the sun is at all? So there's that. Moss grows on the north side of the trees. Everybody talks about that. Here's a tree with some moss on it. It's got moss growing all the way around the tree. This is west. That is where the most of the moss is, and it is west. But that's because the shadier side of this tree is just due to the terrain features. We're in this really steep valley right here, this steep draw, and the hills block the sunshine and causes the moss to grow more on this one side of the tree. It's not the north side, so you can't really trust that. The only time that really works is in big open areas and big open fields where there's no protection from the hills or other plants and trees and stuff. I've been out here wandering around making this video. I'm lost now. I'm just gonna follow my own advice and I'm going to walk downhill and see what happens. I'm gonna trust my own advice and see what happens. I'm not using a compass. I'm not paying attention to where the sun is. None of that. I'm just gonna walk down this hill and see if I find some water. Definitely don't let my dog lead the way. She'll lead me astray for sure. Look at that. Headed downhill, just keep going downhill, and we found water. And then I would just follow this stream downhill, keep following it downstream until it runs into a bigger stream. And a lot of these little branches like this are gonna feed into a bigger stream, and it's gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where people are, that's where houses are, that's where roads are. I've never been in this exact spot before in my life. I may not know exactly where I am, but I know I'm not lost. And now that we found water, by the way, I'd be perfectly happy to drink out of this right here. It's coming straight out of the ground. There's nothing above it. There's no houses, no nothing like that. I'd feel totally comfortable drinking that. Now we'll try another technique. So I have the sun on my left shoulder for the most part. If I want to go home, I put the sun on my right shoulder, and that will take me back the way I came. I think most of us use GPS as our primary means of navigation now, which is fine. It's all good. But don't rely on it completely, because I've definitely had GPS fail me. I've definitely had it tell me I'm in some place where I 100% know that I'm not. I've had it not work at all. Batteries die. I recently took a really short class, just a brief snapshot, an hour-long class with Craig Caudell. He's the one that kind of inspired me to do this video on navigation. And he's very talented at what he does. He's an excellent instructor. So if you should ever find yourself within driving distance of him, take one of your classes. I'll be sure to put his link in the description. You know, heading to high ground is not always a bad idea either. You can sometimes get a pretty good lay of the land by hiking up to a ridge or top of a hill, the highest point. So by using the sun as my primary means of navigation, getting back, I put it on my right side, just kept it on my right shoulder and walked back. I now know exactly where I am. This is a hunting trail that I use every year. I know exactly where I am. I'm back on familiar ground, and I could get myself out of this situation. While this doesn't look like much of a trail to the untrained eye, I 100% have been in this spot. And I know that if I walk this way, it'll take me back to where my truck's parked. I really hope you found this encouraging a little bit. Hope you found it at least a little bit informative. I really appreciate you watching. Thumbs up is greatly appreciated. Check out the website, check out our store. Any and all contributions there, any of the gear that you buy there is greatly appreciated because it really helps us out. And I can't wait to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. This is my job. This is what I do. Maggie, what did you find? Oh my. We're a ways up here. I mean, nobody hunts here that I know of. But there's a deer leg. She's trying to give it to me. Where did you get that? My guess is that was a deer that was cleaned down below somewhere, way down there, and the critters have drug it up here, kind of like Maggie.